from Saudi Arabia. Lebanon is a land for all Lebanese. Lebanon is the Arab state, and which is a member of the UN and a member of the OIC, and which is committed to the international laws and international human rights laws. Your Highness, Majesties, and Excellencies, the Israeli aggression that is continuing has created many atrocities, and the victims of this aggression has gone beyond 3,000 people, most of whom are women and children. And more than 4,000 children have gone, including medical staffs. About 2.5 million have been displaced. And that is an addition to our crisis. And economic implications of this, as estimated by the World Bank, by the bank, until now, 8.5 billion, including 3 billion, which is related to destruction, full destruction of full residences, and also 5 billion in the field of education and other important sectors. And we must not. No country can support such a destruction. How can Lebanon, which is facing an economic crisis for 5 years, confess such an aggression? I would like to extend my gratitude to all the countries that have supported Lebanon. And we are grateful to them. We have something in common, and we will not separate. And from this platform, I call upon you, to all of you, to continue supporting us and supporting through aid assistance and medical assistance in terms of emergencies. I also call on the countries of the regions to take into account the specificities of our Lebanon and to abstain from interference with our internal affairs. We have to support Lebanon as a country, and we have to prepare the ground for the return of the displaced people in security and secure all this assistance. Some of the schools have been closed, and we have to secure aid assistance as soon as we go beyond the ceasefire period. And that will enable us to return them to their villages through a program relevant to that. And the expansion or the financing of the reconstruction must be also undertaken. And we must stop the aggression and the hostilities as soon as possible, and we have to look into that in compliance with the commitment of the government of Lebanon to the relevant resolution of the UN. And we have to stand against the flow of the aggression army within our country. And we must be responsible of our full and sovereignty and territorial integrity. I call upon the international community and Islamic countries to stop bias so that we can reach an immediate ceasefire arrangement. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, Majesties, the suffering of Palestinian people, which is going on the aggressions and occupation, I will reiterate my call that a ceasefire be reached through a comprehensive arrangement which can secure two-state solutions. Your Highness Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince, who have call on the establishment of a independent state for the Palestinian people. Finally, peace be upon you all from a country which is undergoing aggression. Thank you very much.
We thank His Excellency Mr. Najib Mikati for his speech, and now the President of Uzbekistan, to give his speech, please.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Dear Honorable Chairman, distinguished heads of delegations, Honorable Mr. Chairman, I would like to extend my deep gratitude to the custodian of the two holy mosques, His Majesty, the King of Saudi Arabia, Salman bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud, and as well as His Highness, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, for hosting this important summit today on the most urgent and painful issue on the global political agenda, the problem of Palestine. Regrettably, since the historic meeting in Riyadh in 2023, the scope of this unfair and violent war has further widened. Despite the resolute efforts and urges of the international community, flagrant violation of international norms and resolutions continues to this day. We are all dismayed by the fact that now the flames of war encompass Lebanon as well. As my colleagues have noted in their statements, these devastating and horrific attacks, which have caused the deaths and thousands of innocent children, women, and elderly, are turning into the darkest page of the new history of humanity. One cannot watch without a broken heart how social infrastructure facilities, schools, hospitals, mosques, and even entire cities are turning into ruins, leaving millions of civilians homeless and doomed to hunger and disease. Worst of all, as we all can see, this strategy on the international arena is being approached through double standards. This dramatically increases the potential for spillover of the war and poses a serious threat to international security. Dear participants of the summit, Uzbekistan fully supports all the practical initiatives aimed at addressing the Palestinian-Israeli problem through peace and diplomacy. In this regard, we believe that today's summit will demonstrate common political will and unity, develop effective global and regional mechanisms and specific solutions, and swiftly put them into practice. In first place, here we are referring to the need to drastically increase the role and influence of the United Nations and the Security Council in addressing this long-standing conflict. Immediate cessation of military action, provision of safe humanitarian corridors, and most importantly, the initiation of peace negotiations should be at constant focus. It should be at the constant focus of this universal international structure. Second, on November 15, the long-suffering Palestinian people will celebrate their national day, the Day Declaration of the State of Palestine. I'm confident that this nation with an ancient and rich history has every right to establish an independent and free state within the borders of 1967 with East Jerusalem as its capital. In this regard, we fully support the activities of the Global Alliance for implementation of the two-state solution organized at the initiative of Saudi Arabia. Third, in order to prevent an unprecedented humanitarian crisis in Palestine and Lebanon, we need to expand the scope of assistance from our countries and within the framework of leading international organizations. We support increasing the necessary assistance to the activities of UNRWA, and the other United Nations institutions which have great experience. In this regard, we express our readiness to provide free medical care to war-affected Palestinian children and women in Uzbekistan's hospitals. We also intend to discuss the issue of extending practical assistance to the Palestinian people at the forthcoming GCC Central Asia Summit in Samarkand next year. Fourth, as part of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, we should attach great attention to ensuring the sanctity and preservation of the Holy Al-Aqsa Mosque and other unique historical and cultural cities in Jerusalem. Dear heads of delegations, I hope that our extraordinary meeting today will be a big step towards addressing the Middle East problem. I pray to Allah Almighty to bestow peace and tranquility upon the world and further strengthen the unity of our Ummah. Thank you for your kind attention.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Shaukat Magdari for his speech. And now His Excellency President Bashar Assad, the President of Syria, to give his speech. Your Excellency, Your Royal Highness, President Mohammed bin Salman, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, we will not talk about the historical rights of the Palestinians or the solidarity of both the Palestinian and the Lebanese people and our role to support them and legitimacy of resistance in both countries and what has embodied of honor and what has provided the iconic fighters and the brave fighters. And will not talk about the nasty crimes of the Zionist regime and not the transformation of the West as a supporter to become a partner. This will not add to what Muslims and Arabs know and others know in the world today. As far as our summit, we met a year ago and we expressed and we condemned, and for a year the crime continues. So are we meeting today to copy the past, the history, or maybe change in the future and its different dimensions? Last year we emphasized on pathos of ending the aggression and the protection of the Palestinians, and the result was tens of thousands of martyrs and millions of displaced people in both Lebanon and Palestine. In the year 2002, the Arabs started a peace initiative, and the response was more massacres against the Palestinians. In the year 91, we also entered into the good intentions of America by participating in the peace process in Madrid. Peace was provoking their crimes, and this is not a mistake on our directives, but maybe a shortcoming in preparing the appropriate tools. Our tool is the talk, and their language is the killing. We provide peace, and we receive bloodshed. The results staying as is to replace the tools, but changing these results, and that's what we all aim for, require changing the current tools and mechanisms that was tried over time with no avail. If we agree about the principles, how can we transform it into practical application on the ground to achieve our objectives, to determine the tools available to achieve that peace and the targeted entities that will lead turn and talk into action, and from agreements and statements to reality. And maybe the objectives when we talk about the rights of the Palestinian people might be evident to us, but what's the benefit from these rights? And they don't have even the basic rights of a living. That means that with the importance, as we are trying to or regain those rights of the Palestinians, the priority now to stop the massacres and to stop the genocide. But the tools, I believe that we do possess it collectively on official level, Arabs and Muslims, peoples and countries. We need to take a decision of the use of the tools if the Israel did not agree in our statements, and this is what I expected, and to determine our options then. Should we be angry again? Should we condemn? Should we call upon the international community? Should we impose sanctions? But what is our practical plan? We are indirect partners in this genocide. We're not talking about a country, but we're talking about a colonist entity, an outlaw regime. We're dealing with settlers, more barbaric than humane. And the problem is not with a certain government or this government and the people who are scared of the previous events. They're all working with one ideological brain, sick with bloodshedding, suffering from schizophrenia. Those who we target in our meeting today, and they are the ones posing this problem, and this problem determines the mean, and the mean will be the essential for the success. And we're hoping that we'll achieve success in this meeting and we'll take the appropriate decisions, not to be as one talking to a thief with the language of law, and with the criminal with the language of ethics, and with the killer with the language of humanity. And the good intention should not be once again a starting point for more killing against both people, both the Palestinian and the Lebanese people, that has paid for their good intentions. And peace be upon you.
أشكر فخامة الرئيس بشار.
We thank His Excellency President Bashar al-Assad for his speech, and now the President of Malaysia, Anwar Ibrahim, will give his speech. Thank you.
Majesty King Salman Abdul Aziz and Your Royal Highness Muhammad bin Salman Al Saud for convening this important meeting today. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I concur with the many excellent points and recommendations made by fellow leaders. Their views reflect a united voice of the Muslim Ummah, born out of the surge of shared conviction among our people. We acknowledge that the circumstances confronting the Muslim world and the Ummah has been most trying and challenging. Yet, it is indeed highly commendable that painstaking efforts have been made and continue to be made, including summits such as this, so as to find ways and means to put an end to violence, destruction, and misery brought on the Palestinian people and to relieve their long and untold suffering. Israel no longer belongs within the civilized community of nations, and its barbarism demands nothing less than decisive action to safeguard not just the Middle East, but the entire global order. 50 years ago, the world was so horrified by the atrocities in South Africa that the United Nations General Assembly took the unprecedented step of denying its government a seat of the assembly. Israel, however, has gone beyond the pale, beyond reason, beyond humanity itself in its vile and blatant perpetration of genocide of the people of Palestine. This cumulative act of violence against an entire nation leaves us with no choice but to demand the swift and effective action of the international community, including embargo, suspension, and even expulsion. In its relentless campaigns, Israel has now struck the very heart of the international community. The community's lifeline for Palestine by targeting the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees. By barring UNRWA from operating, Israel is causing the collapse of the world's humanitarian response, cutting off the most basic means of survival in Gaza for those who have already lost so much. We must put an end to this continued senseless carnage and take immediate steps to furnish more effective protection for the UNRWA. We must accord better protection for the UN peacekeepers in Lebanon, comprising nearly 50 nations, including Malaysia, who have been attacked and terrorized by Israeli forces. The international community must act swiftly and forcefully. As an immediate measure, we must push, as Malaysia did at the UN General Assembly in September, to impose an immediate arms embargo against Israel. Nevertheless, the severity of Israel's assault on humanity's most basic rules of international compact deserves consideration of a more serious response. For the sake of not only the Palestinian but humanity itself, we must punish and deter Israel's repeated violations of international law and norms. We should therefore build a consensus towards suspending or even expelling Israel from the United Nations itself. Israel's tale of atrocities has already spread into Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. If the world turns away now, this violence will not remain contained. It will ignite a fire that threatens to engulf the entire region and the rest of the world. At the end of the day, the most aspects of concern are the victims. It is therefore imperative that we redouble current efforts to help rebuild Gaza from the ruins of destruction. Of crucial importance is implementing the plans without any undue delay. We must draw a line in the sand, not only as Muslims, but as fellow humans, united and bound by our fragile mortality and committed to a simple truth, a wish for a safer, kinder world for our children and the generations to come. Thank you.
Thank His Excellency Salam Ibrahim for his speech, and now the President of Mauritania to give his speech. And Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful peace be upon Prophet Muhammad and his companions. Your Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, the Crown Prince, the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, peace be upon you. At the beginning, I'm glad to extend my thanks and gratitude to the custodian of the two holy mosques, His Royal Highness King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, and to the Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Crown Prince, Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, all efforts exerted to support the Palestinian cause, embodied by their keenness to hold this summit to continue on following of the outputs of the previous summit and to review the different dimensions of the situation. Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, despite the outcomes of the previous summit with regards to the situation in Gaza, the demand of the Security Council to take all the necessary steps to bring a ceasefire, and the entry of the humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people, and all the initiatives undertaken, yet Israel continues the violations of the international law, and they continue with their aggression and the international humanitarian aid, but also expanded the circle of aggression to reach Lebanon. And the pressures of the international community did not succeed yet, and all the efforts exerted and all the initiatives undertaken, yet Israel continues the violations of the international law, and they continue with their aggression and the international humanitarian aid, but also expanded the circle of aggression to reach Lebanon. And the pressures of the international community did not succeed yet, and all the efforts exerted by the Arab and Islamic State to reach a deal of a ceasefire. And the ceasefire and empowering the Palestinian people to establish an independent state with sovereignty is a precondition to ensure peace and stability in the region, and also as the nations will regain their confidence and trust. Yeah, Excellencies, Your Highnesses, we at Mauritania, the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, renew our condemnation of the genocide that's taking place in Palestine. We emphasize that we remain committed to bring a ceasefire to reach a two-states solution, as well as the Arab Peace Initiative, and ensuring our solidarity with the Lebanese people of the aggression they are facing, and also calling upon an immediate ceasefire, supporting all the initiatives that will help us achieve that goal. And as we hold in this summit, we're hoping to achieve success that emphasize our keenness to stop the aggression on both the Lebanese and Palestinian people. The matter to us is a matter of priorities of the nations and the holiness of the holy sites. And thank you and peace be upon him.
I thank His Excellency for his word. I would like to give the floor to the President of the Republic of Senegal for his speech. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most peaceful, Your Highness, Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince and Prime Minister, Your Majesties, Highnesses, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, honorable ministers, ambassadors, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before anything, I would like to thank Allah for having gathered here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to discuss the ongoing situation in Palestine and Lebanon. I think the King and the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for the hospitality and warm welcome accorded us. It is also an opportunity for me to pay tribute to the custodian of Tuala Mosque for his efforts towards the Muslim countries. Since 7 October, day of Hamas attack against Israel, the Palestinian people are occupied illegally by Israel in retaliation to the aggression, and its dignity is being violated. More than 43 people have lost their lives, and the injuries cannot be counted, most of whom are women and children, including the medical staff, journalists, and workers of the UN who have been killed in the exercise of their duties. Today, the Gaza Strip is devastated by Israeli operation, which count for 80% of its territory, with forced displacement measures. Many people have been displaced without resources and in most cases without shelter. In disastrous situation, in face of this tragedy, the Palestinian occupied territory, including Al-Quds, families have been destroyed, and all that in affront of international law, including humanitarian law and human rights law, which is now taking the sense of ethnic cleansing and genocide. We cannot be silent over that, which will be in contradiction of the human values. We have to act to ensure that these acts of Israel are not simple war acts. We have to request an immediate ceasefire and a strong response to the aggression. We have to be in line with the United Nations, and there is a lack of reaction from the UN side is not only contribute to the weakening of the credibility of the UN. With that, a mobilization from the side of the Islamic Ummah is necessary. And this conflict is not only a threat for the regional threat, but for the whole Ummah and the international community. Allowing for injustice to continue and question the fundamentals of multilateral measures must be undertaken. We have to protect that in order to move forward with solutions. This is why we are calling for the condemnation of the measures taken by Israel to prohibit UN operation and its Secretary General. This is a violation of the UN Charter and all relevant international laws, including the refugee law, and banning UNRWA from operating in Palestine. OIC must revoke some rights from Israel. Between Israel and Palestine, we must undertake a solution of two states living side by side with Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine. With the coming of the international solidarity with Palestine, that will be celebrated on 26 November, we have to intensify our commitment to restore the full rights of the Palestinian people. We have to mourn that day and in the honor of the victims that have fallen down because of the Israeli aggression, to allow for justice to triumph. Today we must unify our efforts in solidarity and Islamic
ریاض و رئیس شورای وزیران پادشاهی عربستان سعودی، عالی جنابان محترم سران دولت ها و رهبران هیئت ها، شدت گرفتن و زد و خردهای مسلحانه و تمایل توسعه میدانی آنها، همچنین پیچیده‌تر شدن بحران بشری در منطقه باعث نگرانی عمیق ما گردیده است. پیامدهای فاجعه‌بار عملیات‌های حربی در نوار غزه و لبنان منطقه را در رویاروی بحران بی‌سابقه هومانیتری قرار دادند. با در نظر داشت این حالت ما قرار پارلمان اسرائیل زدوخوردهای مسلحانه
We all are deeply concerned of an escalation of armed conflicts and a dynamic of expansion of their geography as humanitarian crisis in the region is getting worse. The tragic consequences of military operations in the Gaza and Lebanon have placed the region in the face of an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. In light of this situation, we consider the decision of the Israel Parliament to suspend the activity of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, the UNRWA, as a blatant violation of the international law. We once again call on all parties involved in the conflict to resolve all disputes solely through dialogue and diplomatic means, referring to the recognized principles and norms of the international law, particularly the United Nations Charter. In this process, we do also support the reinforcement of the leading role of the United Nations and any other efforts made by other influential international organizations, including the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, to restore stability in the region. Meanwhile, with the aim to prevent a protracted war in the Middle East, we urge all countries in the region and the world to take effective actions in the spirit of solidarity, mutual trust, and constructiveness. We believe that the real solution to the Palestinian conflict and building just and lasting peace in the region is only possible through the implementation of the United Nations resolutions. Those are calling for the establishment of an independent and sovereign state of Palestine. Tajikistan firmly supports the establishment of the State of Palestine with its capital as Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, based on the borders of 1967. This is the path through which the Palestinian people can exercise their legitimate national rights as an independent subject of the international community based on recognized principles of interstate relations. In this context, it is critical that we give more support with our further efforts to restart the multilateral dialogue process aimed at achieving a resolution to the conflict. It is regrettable that the efforts of the United Nations in this direction are not yielding results. The UN Security Council is unable to achieve a common position due to differing opinions, even regarding the adoption of a resolution aimed at protecting the lives of the peaceful population. Although conflicts and bloodshed in this Middle Eastern region have reached their height, we see no serious and impactful actions taken by the relevant parties to end the conflict. Furthermore, individual parties have adopted ambivalent position and kept silence, ignoring the humanitarian disaster currently unfolding in the Gaza Strip. Alongside this, we express our full and strong support for the continuous attention of the Organization of Islamic